I'm not great. I've heard of it. Tearing it down. Cell tower by itself.
I don't know. I didn't say this.
Copy of that, like, reality set up. There's electronics across the system.
What do we need to do, Mayor? We need to change the agenda?
If council wishes to move the continuation from the special meeting up, yes, sir. But we do need to do the public hearing first for the annexation. But I don't believe that's going to have a lot of public comment.
All right, well, we'll wait for them to get back here. Start the meeting, select the moment. We're waiting on Debbie. Chris, are you just going to give us an update on that?
The new thing.
I'll hold my questions. Well, I appreciate you having a bigger map there. That one on my laptop.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
It takes forever to load, too.
Yeah, that's
More computers like.
what are you doing to me?
All right. All righty, well, this is a continuation, but we need to start our meeting, so if y'all stand with me, please, we'll do our invocation. Please pray with me. Dear Lord, thank you for the many blessings you've given us. Thank you for the opportunity to celebrate the birth of our nation last week. We just give you all praise and glory and everything you've done for each one of us. Be with us tonight, guide us and direct us as we do the business of the town. Be with our men and women in uniform, protecting us tonight. Be with our men and women overseas and in country, defending our freedom. Everything we do is say, give you all praise and glory. In Jesus Christ's name. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we do have public comments tonight, so if anybody signed up, Aaron's going to get your sheet tonight. If you didn't sign up, you can sign up now. All right. Bob,
Okay.
I've been pronouncing your last name Reagan.
Reagan.
Is that it?
Yeah, it said Reagan.
That's a great last name.
Yeah, in fact, we came through North Carolina on our way to Tennessee back in the 1700s, somewhere there.
All right.
Orange County, wherever that is. I don't think it really exists anymore. It was spelled different, R-A-G-A-N back then. They misspelled it during the Civil War. All right, so I think the discussion you guys had at 5 was very good. I was really happy to hear a lot of open minds there. I just wanted to talk a little bit about you know, of course, you know how I like to research things, so I was looking at your land use plan, the comprehensive land use plan, and there's, you know, a couple of things in there. In the back of it, I think it's like page, I don't know, 239 or something, it didn't print on the sheet. Single-family detached housing properly serves 33 to 45% of the typical population's profile. I don't know where that number came from. I think it's a wrong number. And then it also talks about missing middle housing, you know, which is duplexes, triplexes, small multifamily mansions, which, you know, what we've seen so far, none of what's going in is the missing middle housing too much. And you know, there's a few townhouses going in, which, you know, I think that is addressing that. But I just want to share a statistic with you. This is from the U.S. Census Department. Home ownership rate in the United States is 64%. Okay, and the vacancy rate of homeowner rate, you know, vacancy rate is 1.4%. All right, so you know, if you kind of extrapolate, say 64 is home ownership, the other 35 must be renters, right? Rental vacancy rate is 7% in the United States. So you know, there's a lot more vacant rental houses or rental properties. So that's just one number. The other number that I thought was interesting was let's see it. For renters, where do you think the majority of renters live? They live in single-family houses. 43% of renters live in single-family houses. So apartments aren't really the desired place people want to be. And there's, you know, quite a few studies out there, and so as you start to, you know, do more studies, I know Ms. Paxton has some good data as well. You know, you'll see that apartments aren't really where people want to be. Apartments have 50% turnover. Half the people leave every year. That's pretty amazing. If you think about that, you have to think about: do you really want that much of your population moving every year? And are they going to stay in your town, or are they going to move someplace else? We're not in a separate little town. We're surrounded by other cities. So, you know, if they leave an apartment in Stallings, they might move to a house in Indian Trail, or a house in Matthews, or a house in Weddington. So you know, just keep that in mind as you start to talk about what you want to do. I just asked that. And yeah, then there's another one, tax value per acre by land use, and it's got mixed uses, you know, being $6 million per acre. Well, I think maybe that's true in a place like Waverly or a place like Baxter Village. But if it's going to be all multifamily, that's only $1.53. You know, that's not much more than single family, and certainly probably not as much as single family in Weddington, you know, where the home values are pretty high. But you know, I think some of the data in this document is just kind of suspect, and I would just caution you to, you know, to research it some other way as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob. Anybody else that didn't sign up? All righty, we'll move on here to the consent agenda. Anybody have any additions, deletions, or amendments to the all the minutes that are there?
I have an observation.
Okay.
I didn't realize when I requested to leave last meeting, so I could go, or whatever it was, to give EOGs the next day, that I was the one making the motion. I thought it was kind of funny, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I thought somebody else made the motion.
All right, get a motion to approve all these minutes on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll say.
Motion by Ms. Romanow, second by Ms. Steele. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous. I have no report. Report from the council members. Linda?
There is something I really want to have entered on the record. It's come to my attention that some of my fellow council members had communicated information among themselves and to citizens that implied that I had a financial interest in the site for the Solis development, which influenced my decision to oppose the developer agreement. And I'd like to bring that information forward for the record. I have been completely transparent in sharing information with some members of council, as well as Mr. Pappas, that I had presented offers for 2 different developers for the Union Power site in May and June of 2018. I had a client who was interested in that site, and I had been in conversation off and on with Greg Andress of Union Power about the property since they first purchased it. Union Power's plans were not definite initially, and the property was not offered for sale until much later. The asking price for the property was $130,000 per acre. My clients were single-family detached home builders. Neither was able to make the numbers work for single-family at that per acre price. They each made lower offers that were rejected by Union Power, and I did not pursue it any further because it was the opinion of the buyers that the site had a lot of obstacles for single-family development and that some sort of multifamily would be needed to support that kind of pricing. The small area plan had not been developed at that time, and neither offer that I presented would have included any apartment construction. I didn't learn of the Stallings project until a meeting with Jeff Smith, Craig Miller, and Mr. Pappas on January the 17th of 2019, more than 6 months later. I informed Mr. Pappas of those previous offers and indicated that due to some of the challenges with the track, I thought that his project might be more suitable for the site and would likely be more in keeping with the council majority's plans for the area. As I recall, I also disclosed to Mr. Pappas' group that I was not in favor of high-density development and had voted against the UDO. Terwilliger Pappas did not submit their application for development of the site until March the 21st of 2019, and the first subcommittee meeting was held on April 10th. I was initially open to possible support of the Stallings project despite the density, because I believed it to be consistent with the adopted UDO and the council majority's plans. However, after all the commercial components were removed, the traffic data from the 10th version of the ITE did not reflect local trip generation numbers or take into account the bedroom counts of the apartments. And the developer's contribution of $87,500 for the roundabout was, in my opinion, inadequate. I was not inclined to support the agreement that was to be voted upon. Then, with the strong public opposition to the project, communication of concern from neighboring jurisdictions, Mr. Reagan's identification of serious discrepancies with the standards in the UDO, and a pending lawsuit, I considered it unwise for council to take a vote on the agreement that was before us on June the 24th, and certainly I would not vote to approve it. I hope this makes it clear to anyone who received any comments, emails, or other communication of those innuendos as to what my involvement had been and the reasons for my decision. My opinion of this project or the development agreement associated with it had absolutely nothing to do with any financial interest or personal benefit. And that, I just wanted to have it on the record. And the only other thing I have in my report this evening is to let council know that the CARPO meeting last month considered the dilemma we have with the financing for the Old Monroe Road project. Indian Trail had once committed $10 million to that project. They recently withdrew the funding for it, and DOT had given them an option of either putting the $10 million back or having that segment of the project delayed until 2026. So DOT made a presentation to the CARPO board about the situation we were in, and there was some discussion there. No vote was taken, but we talked about the possibility of, in fact, this was my suggestion to the board, that we look at the projects that were much lower ranked, the lowest ranked, that were receiving funding, and how long they had been considered for funding projects, because the Old Monroe Road corridor has been the second highest ranked project in the state for probably 20 years. And I think they are looking at those other projects and seeing if maybe Indian Trail might come back with maybe $5 million, and we find the funding for it somewhere else. But no decision was made. I understand Indian Trail is discussing this at their meeting tomorrow night as to how they will proceed, and coordinating committee will hear it on Thursday, and it'll come back to Carpo for a vote at our meeting on the 17th. So that's where we are with Golden Road. That's my report. Thank you.
Sure.
So do you need us, so what are your choices? Or do you have those already?
I don't know what the choices are yet. I did send Kerry Morris, who's the delegate to Carpo, today, and he said they haven't made a decision. They'll be discussing it tomorrow night, so I don't know what the choices might be.
So what would you be, in your opinion, if you had to choose right now, what would you go for?
Well, I still think Indian Trail needs to put some money in. I think the $10 million, if there are other sources of funding that maybe some of that could be made up somewhere else. I know Indian Trail initially was looking at possibly asking for the money that was to go to the 77 Heart and Shoulders project. You remember I told you about that? But that project was actually initiated by the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Transportation at the state level. So having that money available to Indian Trail is probably not going to happen. But I do hope, and I would support, if we could find funding from some lesser ranked projects or some more recently funded projects to make up the difference, that would be a reasonable alternative. So that's where I'm leaning. If you all want to give me some direction, I'm open to hearing your comments.
Well, I think it's a good point you brought up, the fact that it's been on the highest, ranked of the state since 20 years, because like when I mentioned the 2009 meeting, and you probably may remember this too, right? Indian Trail and Stallings they took the monies that were set aside for these two roads, Indian Trail and Stallings Road, and said, use it for here, because that makes the most sense. And I'm sure that money's all been accounted for. And so that was 2009, so who knows? I mean, 20 years is a very long time.
And the project's ready to go. The other point I made, and I think other people agree, that corridor does need to be developed once. We don't need to do our little segment and then come back in 2026 and do the Indian Trail segment. So I think it makes sense to try to get it all done now. However, we can find the funding to do it.
Logistics and financials.
The projects that you guys were talking about potentially taking funding from them, were any of them in our account?
I don't know what those projects are. I just said, can we please take a look at what those lowest ranked ones are and see if we could maybe have them be delayed till 2026.
We're working on Idlewild, Monroe, and that roundabout, and I'm just saying to see that roundabout at Chestnut go away, because they've been promising us that for a few years too. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. John?
No update.
Nothing.
Yep.
Same.
John? Alex?
Yes, sir, thank you. So, as you all know, we've got concept plans for Ottawa corridor, the two versions, and I've asked Chris to help us better understand that, so council can determine which steps we'd like to take along that. So that being said, Chris, do you mind leading us through this, please, sir?
Oh, yes, on July 25th, 2019, at Poppin Elementary School, from 4 to 7 p.m., NCDOT will have a public hearing on the Idlewild widening project. So prior to that project, staff has requested public hearing maps for review, so we provide input to DOT prior to that meeting. So here on the desk, I have the actual hearing maps for council and public to look at. Basically, it's going to be a 6-lane median divided corridor from Barney Drive and Matthews to Rockwell Drive and Henry Bridge. There will be a diversion diamond interchange at 485, and there's two potential options for the intersection of Stevens Mill and Ottawa. One would be the traditional intersection, and the other one would be a Michigan left intersection. So this DOT hasn't made a decision as to which treatment they're going to do at this time. I think from the operational standpoint, they would probably prefer the Michigan left, but I know the town has requested a full movement intersection.
When you say Michigan left, are you talking Super Street?
It's somewhat of a
They don't want to use that
You can
word.
make the through movement on Stevens Mill, you just can't make a left movement from Ottawa onto Stevens
You have to go down to
You
the.
can't
Mill. You
make
have to
it
go
up.
down and make the U-turn and go around.
Can't make it.
So it's not a super street technically, but it's still a modification of the super street.
Chris, do you have the map where you might be able to pull it up right in there? You just kind of visualize what we're talking about.
Well, they wanted the elected official to comment about July 10th. So I sent my comment today. I've copied y'all. Three components of the super street that they've put in all their literature is reasons for its safety, flow of traffic, and money. And I just said, putting Super Street, Stallings, the Henry Bridge is just a waste of money. It's all stands up down there, so it's not gonna do anything. Plus, the amount of traffic accidents that happen in that corridor in the 20 years I've lived in there are very minor. And so I just don't understand why they don't, if they want to widen the road, do the traditional
Yeah.
left turn, so we'll
I
see
know
if I can
that.
pass it. I copied Dean Arbs. I know Dean said that politics are rather DOT, but we all know that's a.
If I may interject, Mr. Mayor, may I interject? You can't make this left movement from Ottawa to Stevens Mill. So if you wanted to make this left movement, you have to go through the intersection,
Right.
go into U-turn, go over, and go through. But you can make the through movement.
Right. Same thing on, you can't make a left from Stevens Mill onto Ottawa. You have to go
That's
down.
correct.
So that's just an option, so they do have a traditional.
Yes.
So these are the things.
Traditional intersection is an
So the
option.
roundabout is, ideas, Dave?
They said the roundabout, from the operation standpoint, wouldn't work. They said it would fail in 2040 design year.
Because I'd rather have a roundabout than the Texas, Michigan left. But
And how can they say that? Because the Ottawa 51 roundabout does a great job. I mean, how can they say that?
Well, it's just, my point to, is when I talk to them, is just the amount of traffic on Ottawa, I know it's large, but it's not like 51, it's not like 74 where they're putting these super streets. It just, and the other thing that drives me crazy is, I forgot to put in there, is, somebody told me Mecklenburg has an ordinance of that they won't allow super streets.
I
That's
don't know
what,
if it's in the ordinance, but they don't allow it.
they don't allow. So, yeah,
What, how we get one of
so
those?
how do we get all these super streets?
Yeah, let's figure that out.
All right, so, sorry to interrupt you, Chris.
But that's all I have today.
All right, any questions?
Can you bring up the other map?
The judicial?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And what is your opinion from an operational standpoint of that crazy thing on the bridge, down the back with the?
Oh, the diversion diamond?
Yeah, you have flashbacks.
I mean, I think operationally, they work very well. I think of the one on Popular 1085, and from the operation standpoint, it works very well. So I know NCDOT is very protective of the ramps that impact interstates. So I think that particular treatment does work a little bit
Do
better.
they
than
do
the
that
traditional.
to allow more banking on the ramps?
Basically, as you approach westbound,
Chris,
you
will
stop.
you do that one? We can't all see on this one. Thank you, please.
As you approach westbound, there's basically a signal at each ramp. You come to here, and if it becomes green, you would actually drive on the opposite side of the street. You either go through or get on the ramp itself. So the idea of it is you're removing that protected left at the interchanges itself.
Right.
So from the operational standpoint, that's a lot
And I agree.
more effective.
Accidents I have seen on the bridge are turning left on 485.
Yeah.
Now, they haven't been major wrecks, but there's been vendors. But Atlanta is adopting this thing like crazy. And you talk about, I heard John say freak you out, you talk about freaking out.
Yeah, the one at Palmer Tent, that kind of
Yes.
freaks you out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
If you're not used to driving them, it just kind of, you know,
But
area first.
Yeah, Highway 16, we getting on 85.
The pedestrians in the middle, right?
Yes, the pedestrians are in the middle. So here's the sidewalk, you get onto this refuge, cross into the median, and walk across the median, because you can't walk on the shoulders of a bridge.
And then they are putting a roundabout at,
Yes, roundabout at Stallings, we're gonna realign Stallings Road and have a 2-lane roundabout
and
here.
that intersection needs to be improved. It's limited sight
Yes.
on the left, turn left.
Mayor, could I suggest that we take a formal position as a council on this? Because I think our individual comments would probably carry more weight if we had some sort of a resolution or drafted a letter on behalf of the council, and it's not just each of us responding. We can do that too, but I think we've had so many meetings with DOT about this corridor, and we had our consultant on Design Resources Group working with us, and I thought we were making some good progress, and then all of a sudden they kind of quit talking to us about it. So I think we do need to take a fairly forceful position as a board in terms of what we prefer here, and whether we can support either of these alternatives, or if we still want to insist that they look at something different. And, you know, if the diverging diamond works well, then probably we should make a point of saying we support that aspect of it, but not the Michigan ramps at Stevens Mill.
The diverging diamonds outside of Stallings, we wouldn't have any say in that one at all, would we?
Well, we can still tell them that we like it.
No, I'm fine with that, but the Stallings, you slide over to the right.
Or that's our positive in here.
Right, something positive then
Yes,
say.
this is the county line right here, so technically, the interchange is in the town.
You slide it over to the right, please.
Show the county line again, please.
County line is right here. Zoom it down, see. Equitable County, Union County.
Does that go all the way over to Stevens Mill? The scroll, can you scroll over to Stevens Mill?
Well, that's a separate
That's the other one.
sheet itself. So that match line is basically by the air rent property. They don't have it all on the sheet.
And that's the regular.
That's the traditional intersection treatment.
And how many, I know it's small, but how many lanes is the left turn,
I think it's dual lefts.
both ways? Just on Idlewater or Stevens, what about Stevens Mill?
Dual lefts on the southbound movement on Stevens Mill, a single left on the northbound movement. And then on the eastbound movement on Idlewater, dual lefts, and then a single left on the westbound movement.
Is there a dedicated right turn lane off Stevens Mill?
Yes. That's
It's not- it's
dedicated
not- it's
and
not
that
make
one's
those lines
dedicated.
out.
Is that a traditional intersection?
Yes.
Go straight through on Stevens
Yes.
Mill?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
that's one option they give us.
That's one option I would
I like that.
be in favor of.
Support.
The other option I'd be in favor of is the roundabout,
Yeah.
and the third option,
Chris, has there been any discussion of this project through the TCC?
No, ma'am.
Will there be?
Not that I know of. I don't think so.
And I'm asking because at the Park Cove retreat that we had back in June, there was a lot of support there from other towns opposing this whole super street push. And the board has not typically gotten involved in the design aspect of it. We're more of a policy board. But because there was so much concern with all these towns about it, they have kind of agreed to take more of an advocacy position. So I'm wondering if it would be worthwhile for us to be asked to have this reviewed by TCC and maybe have Park Code weigh in on it. I think that would give us some additional leverage because most of the Park Code representatives are not supportive of so many super street designs.
How do we go about requesting TCC?
They meet this week. I'm sure the agenda's already set, but,
Maybe in August, we could potentially get that on the agenda and have a discussion.
They don't allow you to add things to your agenda like we do.
When, not at this point, because the agenda's been set, so.
And, I'm not sure when the DOT's planning to make a final decision, but our meeting is, the public input meeting is 25th. So, well, let's explore that.
Right, you can put it on the August meeting, TCC, and then we'll, we're not meeting again before the 25th, pass a resolution, but
There's some things, I was hearing some commonalities there, like, one with the traditional intersection there, that's a commonality. Any other,
Not the super street, that's a commonality.
because the DOT letter, right, they said, we're gonna have this meeting on July 25th for public officials and then also the public, and they've asked for all comments back to them by August 8th. So I think those are the kind of like, not that, push it off the project, but I think they are they're already behind schedule on this project. So, yeah, I mean, if we get some commonalities and maybe we have to draft a letter for you to send,
well,
or.
we support that intersection, and
Yeah.
this council supports the traditional highway of whatever lanes it is, whatever the traditional median, 10, 12 feet, whatever the traditional median is, so people can, the appropriate
Well, the parking lot
cutouts,
is still there for the
like there are now, so they can get into our businesses.
We had sent this to them before. You want to maybe say this is what we're requesting
There you
again?
go.
Yeah.
I mean, does that sound?
We'll grab something, send it to council, and we can,
Okay.
It comes out.
we won't load it.
So what I'm hearing though is that when it comes to this, initial send a letter, I'll draft something that'll, the traditional intersection at Stevens Mill and Idlewild.
Throw a roundabout on it too as an option. Or at least I think it's an option.
So we talked about that pretty extensively in our meetings with them, and they said they're not going to do that for two reasons. It's going to fail at 2040, and also to do a roundabout, they were concerned about what they would have to do to,
The right-of-way impacts to,
you've got a substation right there, I think. Was it $2 million was the cost of that, and that? And then
And that might not consider.
eating into that church that you're going to do, so.
Well, if you look at it right there, they're losing at least one house. The Jimmy Forbes, the house is gone. I mean, they're moving a good 60 feet north of the current footprint. So this is a substantial shift, and I'm not saying that to disagree with it. I think it needs to be done. It's just the study is happening to those records there. And that land right there, Idlewild Village LLC, which has changed since we redid the zoning a few years ago, that's not cheap land. And the church footprint, church right now is a huge front lot. And after this, the church is going to have a patch of grass and then parking lot. So this is a pretty substantial problem.
So traditional intersection maybe as a second choice, a roundabout, would that be a
Yes.
group consensus? Okay.
No.
When is this expected to be obsolete?
Oh,
The roundabout's 2040. Is this, that's pretty far down the road.
As soon as Henry Bridge opens to development, this will be obsolete, because it'll be full.
Well, here's the idea. We tell DOT that DOT, take this money, put it on our road. And I know we need 4 lanes up where the apartments are going to be.
I don't know, I'm not in favor of robbing Peter to pay Paul here. We definitely need improvements there for the north part of town. We're not getting it for lawyers, we need it for Idlewild.
But if it's a super street,
No.
Yeah, I don't want to see
I
this.
don't want it.
Capital letters,
Six
Alex.
lanes of asphalt is definitely gonna change
Yeah.
the feel and look of that area.
It's going to be loud, it's going to promote a lot of growth. The law of reduced demand, as soon as we add a bigger straw, they're going to some more things to fill it.
So I'm hearing kind of a two-pronged thing. First, a kind of letter, and then second, action you can take the lead on, getting that on the carpo agenda or something?
Yeah, I'll talk to Chris and we'll see.
Okay.
Is Wayne here and set the agenda for TCC?
For this meeting on the 11th, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna give Wayne here a call and see if there might be some opportunity to have this discussed. Would you be able and ready, willing to discuss it at TCC if they would agree to hear some of this?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
So that was just the concept plan, or the cross-section, I guess I should say, that we had sent to them before that we'd already agreed was good. So just kind of, so the letter out two things. One, we want the traditional intersection. If we don't get the traditional intersection, we want a roundabout as a second option. And then, is that fair? Is that correct? Okay. And then the second thing is just send the cross-sections and attachments, say this is what we want. Generally, a couple things. So like, Chris, can you kind of go up to where that Harris Theater intersection is on there? I want to kind of talk sidewalks, just so we're all on the same page, because on here it's almost like a secondary consideration, but like we need to talk about this because it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. We need to be careful and be smart about how we plan this. So on here, if you look at the cross section here, just pretend like it's like this. Okay, so that 14-foot multi-use path is on the top there. What I would suggest, I think we've talked about this in our group, has been, you know, not building that right now, but just as this land develops, you know, have the whoever develops it, you know, pay for that. And then on the other side, there's some limited sidewalk, basically where that shopping center is, with the whole rest of the way is not any of that for you. So, you know, we could just hold off and say, all right, well, anybody that's going to be walking for a minute of development, kind of back down to here, you know, that mixed use component that was just approved recently, they're going to be coming from this way, so they'll have sidewalks to get to the shopping center. They're putting in a pedestrian crosswalk right there at that intersection, so as that area across the street develops, you know, the developer will develop sidewalks to connect that. You still don't have the connectivity, you know, if you go down like this area towards Stevensville, if you will, that won't be there, but someone could theoretically get there through the Greenway connection ultimately, so there would be a way for folks to kind of get there if you will, kind of the Blair Mill area, and set Greenway connections extended. But I didn't know if y'all wanted to look at building sidewalks on the other side, or what your thoughts were.
So how far does the sidewalks go? On either side?
It would be the whole length of the project.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting not have it on the north side? The
So on the undeveloped side, my suggestion would be, all right, let's not have the town pay for that, because there'll just be sidewalks that nobody will be using. Let's wait for the developer to come in, develop that property, and then just get the developer to put in that sidewalk there. So it'll be a win-win for the developer and the town. The access from the developer's site, that sidewalk will be there, and the town doesn't have to pay for the bill.
No brainer.
So, I mean, we just take that focus. We're not going to do any sidewalks now for kind of this area up here. You know, we'll ask for a developer at that time when it comes around and kind of put in that sidewalk. How does that sound to everyone?
That's good.
So we wouldn't be spending any more money on this sidewalk. I mean,
I guess one last concern, sorry, is with all the development we planned there, one of the things we wanted to take into account was access for those folks leaving. And right now, you've only got one full moving intersection where they can get left. I thought we were working with NCDOT to kind of improve the ability to leave that site. I know they're going to be able to come out and take a right and do a UE and head to 485, but I don't see a lot of that traffic that resides there going east down Ottawa. there's no reason for it to. So the majority of that flow is going to be out towards 485. Are we concerned over overloading that one, full movement intersection there?
I think, like in general, this whole area is concerned in that, like, the bottleneck, and they're just moving the bottleneck, right, around from Henry Ridge. So as far as, the TIAs that we looked at for that site there, I mean, it's still a functioning intersection. I think you've got still that kind of general big picture concern because, I guess DOT, what I perceive is they're just trying to get that bottleneck away from 485, right? Because they don't want that ramp. That's their priority number one.
Yeah, that's a major safety
Yeah, so,
Refresh my memory, the driveway that's coming out on the Matthews side of that development we just approved, are they going to be able to turn left?
No, it would
No,
be
it's
right in,
right,
right out.
that's what I thought, it's right on, so there really is only one left only, yeah.
and this is a good segue to our annexation that we've got coming up with our partners, Mr. Arian and the development partners, are working together to kind of get an additional lane to be able to part of that TIA. So that'll help a little bit,
Because aside from what we approved and the residential's going in there, that's a sea of asphalt right there in front of the Ottawa Shopping Center. And I really see that filling in with additional buildings. So we're going to have traffic there 5-10 years down the road. And now would be the time to try to address these regions. So if that's something we can just raise density to get their thoughts.
Any possibility of doing, until we get something across the road, doing a double left?
we're getting into questions that, kind of engineering questions, really.
I mean, if one is going to be eventually a straight through, one was a left and one was a right, right? So until the other side develops, and even in the future, if it develops, why couldn't we potentially do a double left out of that shopping center? Like you have at Providence and
Or make it
McKee, off of McKee onto Providence Road heading towards like Waverly. That's a double.
Like a double left, like coming
Out of the shopping
center.
center and turning left
I
to
would
head
think-
towards 485.
And that TIA, that didn't say that was warranted, but we still
Well,
here, right?
it would be a 4-lane section, so I guess you could potentially restrict one of those lanes to be another left.
Well, the double left, the
We're
left.
talking about coming out of the
Yes.
intersection, right?
The right-hand left turn lane could be marked left or straight through. Like the straight through could be added when they have the potential to go straight through. But you could, that would, double stacking those cars would make your traffic move quicker out of that area to head towards 485.
Yeah, I guess, we've got that additional lane that's gonna be in there, so like it gives us the flexibility if we get there and that one lane isn't enough initially to do it.
Yeah.
Right, so,
I mean, we might as well use it.
yeah. Yeah, that's just something we can just mention to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Chris, on the map, there's a lot of homeowners, houses and dwellings. Do they still have driveway access? I mean, how are they gonna?
Yes, you can't, DOT, you can't disrupt their access. So if they have an access point now, they have to have an access point in the future.
It would just be right in, right now, right?
It could just be right around. That's correct.
Okay, so what I've got then is, for the letter from the mayor, the first approach, our two-pronged approach, the second being the Carpo push. Traditional intersection, Stevensville and Idlewild. Same as this cross section, is what we want, with this being the north side. We don't want we don't want to have to pay for any additional sidewalks right now, but we want the space for those to be in there. Is that fair?
Okay.
And do mention the support for the diverging diamond, because it's nice to give them some positive feedback.
Yeah.
Ask her for a lot
Or
more.
telling them basically everything else is wrong. to us anyway.
Support for diversion diamond and for the roundabout at Stallings.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Yeah.
Golf ball.
So everybody's good with Virgin Diamond, we're good? Okay.
All right. Anything else, Chris?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else, Alex?
Yes, sir, thank you for your time.
All right, the agenda approval, I think we're good on it. Yeah, we need to do the annexation first. Anybody wants?
I'll make a motion.
All right,
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
we have a second. Second by, motion by Ms. Romanow, second by Ms. Paxton, all in favor, raise your hand, please. That's unanimous, thank y'all. All righty, Aaron, annexation 52,
Yes, sir, if you could just.
I'll open the public hearing.
Yes, I don't know, is there anyone from the public here to speak on the annexation? Then the next item would be about the annexation would be the ordinance to approve the annexation. As council may recall, this is the errant property for Northeast School that the council approved the rezoning of a while back, and this was basically one of the conditions of that. The acreage is approximately 12.3 acres on that property, and the ordinance to adopt that annexation is in your packet.
Any questions for staff? Let me get it up here. Sorry. All right. I will read it into the record. Can I get a, oh, can I close it? I'll close the public hearing. Can I get a vote on, or a motion on the ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the town of Stallings?
Make a motion that we approve the annexation ordinance for annexation 52 Aaron's Northeast Tool.
Motion by Ms. Romanow, second by Mr. Shaw. All in favor? That's unanimous, all right? I didn't, excuse me for not letting y'all talk.
It's okay, I talked enough last time.
We had your paper there, I thought maybe you had some notes ready for me.
I'm just following along.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank
Look forward to seeing your expansion.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome to Stallings.
Welcome to Stallings.
Good.
Feel like I've been here all my life, right?
Absolutely.
All right, now we'll pick back up on the development agreement process that we carried over. So we were at, talking about notification and participation requirements. And the next thing I thought that Bob made another suggestion that I thought was good. When we get down to the council subcommittee agreement negotiations, that we expand the committee to either somebody from the planning board or somebody from that area that's in that. So maybe it's the Chestnut HOA president, maybe it's the Shanamar HOA president, or their designee. And then that's just another way to get them involved. So, and, you know, it creates more people, it might take more time, more people, makes more time, but we have a request from the town to be more transparent and get it out there in the open, so that's what do y'all think? Where we at? Oh, phase 3. Once the subcommittee meets, having somebody from the community and a planning board member.
Well, I thought we had had some discussion about possibly not using the subcommittee, but having the whole council be.
Well, that's another option, but I still like the subcommittee.
Well, let's talk about the pros and cons of the subcommittee. I think Alex probably mentioned it pretty well up there, but trying to schedule the 3 council members and the applicant is a.
Well, that was another thing, I like his last bullet point. I thought we talked about meeting on 5 o'clock on the second meeting of every month.
I do like that. I think we ought to go for that no matter what we do. That's standing.
5 o'clock on the second meeting, fourth Monday.
I thought that the idea of all of the council being involved was at the beginning of the process, And then to make it so it wasn't so cumbersome for everybody, every development agreement, that then the subcommittee would take over and a memo of some sort, similar to what Lynn had sent out prior, a memo from that meeting would be sent to the whole council, including the subcommittee, and then it gives the rest of the council opportunity to comment and say, I don't like this, or can we ask them about this kind of thing. And that way, everybody's getting their input, but it doesn't require everybody to be there. So it's being more time conscious for everybody, and then we all have our crosses to bear in terms of being, on the subcommittees. But it just makes it so we all don't have to go to every meeting. That was what I thought we
You
were.
all right with that?
Yeah.
All right. And then how about adding to the subcommittee?
I like that idea a lot.
And then Jack, he's the chairman, he appoints one to whoever's
They
in
can
there.
and they can rotate.
If somebody's in their area, they can be on it. And then the community person, HOA president or.
And I think if there's two communities that are directly right there, then you have one from each, I just think that will be a good policy change.
But it gets back to scheduling.
Yeah, it's gonna be really complicated.
Just make it a standard 5
Yep.
o'clock that Monday. If you have-
All right, that's it.
If you're coming, you're coming.
As long as you have form of this subcommittee.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that?
As long as you have quorum, it doesn't mean every single person has to attend.
Right.
And this, is this in our ordinance, the phases? Or is that just,
I think this is
No, currently,
process.
this is the process.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, this is in our ordinance.
so we need to, well, we're not changing these phases, we're just changing, who we're inviting to the subcommittee.
So the first meeting though is for all of council?
Right.
And that's just a,
Information,
They resemble what we're gonna see in the trail,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
just
David and John are going tomorrow night to check it out.
probably.
So what would be the role of the planning board member and the community representative in these subcommittees?
Conversation
Just make
and
them more aware.
of opinions. I mean, I certainly think they should be able to voice their opinion, certainly.
I don't think so.
Not a voting.
Yeah, here's how I'd make that. There's one concern David you raised, and the other concern would be that voting members. One, we already have a hard problem finding out who's in these HOAs. We don't have a formal list anymore, and that changes every year. It can change every week, depending on what's going on in the community. So I think as a formal, with the subcommittees, council were already formalized, we're in our roles, planning board formalized in our roles. I think the subcommittee should be empowered to invite additional folks and allow those folks to speak and be a part. I just don't know that we should formalize and require them to be a voting member per se. I want to hear what the community has to say,
Absolutely.
but we're laying down so many hoops to jump through. We're just going to make this a complicated issue, more complicated than it is already.
I have no problem doing that, we just invite them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to set up 30 minutes at the beginning of the meeting for the public to speak, or, I mean,
Just something where the subcommittee's empowered to say, we want this person's, at the beginning of the meeting, we want this person's opinion, we're going to bring them into the conversation, we allow them to ask questions.
And they attend the
during the meeting?
Yeah.
during the meeting,
And give their opinion.
Just that one person?
Right, I mean, other people, because those are public meetings,
Anyone
other
can
people
come.
can come, but that one person would sit at the table.
Yep.
Or if, in the case of the Solace, it would be Chestnut and the Weddington, Courtyards at Weddington. Like, someone from both of those could be invited to come sit at the table, be a part of the conversation, but they would not have a vote.
How do you want the process to be in person? I heard HOA.
Well, HOA president, and that could be put out. I had a conversation today with one of our residents, had a lovely time, it was very good, and I told her this, that I think that they should be involved in this discussion, like this, in this process. And I think that it maybe not necessarily should be a president or officers for the HOA, but a resident that is concerned, that is willing to make that commitment. The officers might not have that time, and, you know. So I think we should put it up to them, and they can put it out to their homeowners. And, and anybody can come, but they need to pick one that will sit at the table.
Of whoever shows up.
Whoever shows up. What do you think?
Here's where it gets sort of complicated. I think.
How are we drafting this? That's not,
Yeah, because
like whoever shows up, I don't,
No, it's a HOA president or designee.
okay, got it.
And the part that I think it gets
which
complicated.
HOA though, because there could be like
The
5 HOAs, or if somebody's not in an HOA, could just be 5.
Neighborhood that doesn't have an active HOA.
Let's think about it.
We're just calling it a neighborhood.
It's almost like,
Neighborhood representative.
it depends on like the subject, maybe the council members just take the impetus to invite whoever they might. I mean, I think like HOA,
Just make it as generic as possible, just, I would say just a neighborhood in the affected area. And then we
And then whoever's chair of that meeting, right, is at the ground, they will vote on, just so it doesn't, you know, I don't know if I'm gonna be there 4 hours. Maybe do it.
Neighborhood representative or designated.
of the attendees. So, just thinking out loud here, so what we're talking about right now, we've got a application submitted, staff take a look at it, then it goes to a subcommittee, and the planning board and the town council. So we'd be changing that to say, all right, application submitted, staff take a look at it, it goes to town council, then it goes to subcommittee, then it goes to planning board, and then it goes back to the town council.
Well, I think once that application, I thought once the application came in, staff looked at it, sent it to us, or communicated to us what was on it, or what the plan was.
Right.
Then it would go back,
Who's us?
I would think, for the staff continued negotiations.
But it's not a meeting. They don't, they wouldn't send it to us for a meeting. It's just FYI.
FYI, yeah.
And the purpose of that would be so
Just-
y'all are aware, or
Yes.
also for y'all to get feedback?
All of us are aware, and
Okay.
all of us can say, you know, put our opinions in early.
Not over email,
I'm sorry?
just not over email.
I didn't think we were giving.
Right.
Yeah, that was FYI.
Well, maybe it should be FYI. I'm just saying, whatever, I mean, it would be nice to know if we feel like we need to communicate, you know, something, then we can do that individually. Back to Lynn or whatever, then she goes on and does her negotiations.
But I guess here's the issue though, because like, if one person has an opinion that's different from another person,
Who has the better
like,
representation?
what do we do? I think from a staff standpoint, you know, we want to help y'all achieve the goals that you guys want to achieve in the process. We just want to know what our expectations are so we can support you guys and achieve what you want.
Well, then maybe we should just get the information and wait till we get to subcommittee. And let the council as a whole, yeah, let the subcommittee do the work. Everybody sends their thoughts or
To the stuff that.
to the subcommittee.
And if that one, council member X still doesn't like, if that one, you know, widget is still, you know, there, and when it comes before the board, they can bring it up at that point. Because what you said, let's say, I don't like something about the site plan, and and I don't say anything. So it goes to subcommittee, and I express my stuff to the subcommittee. They don't think it's as important, and so they continue down the process, and that issue doesn't get changed. I can still bring it up before the board. And if the board as a whole says, no, we don't care about that widget, we're good with it, they vote and it's approved without that widget being changed.
I just think it's better to have that conversation if you don't like something beforehand, because the idea is that there's not supposed to, that the development agreement is kind of in the form that you want it.
Well, there would have been conversation because that one council member that doesn't like is going to give their information to one of the subcommittee members, and then that will be discussed. You know, as,
Just so there's no surprises on either side.
right.
Yeah. You don't want to have
So,
lots of negotiation and come up and say,
it
wait,
comes
you
to
know,
us-
not proportionate or-
it comes to us through
this
email.
thing or whatever it is.
Just for us, for an FYI, we are aware when it's gonna go into subcommittee, the subcommittee members receive feedback from the whole from the council, and bring up any concerns that are had at that time. But staff would be continuing to negotiate things as well. Then after the subcommittee, however many meetings they have to have, then it goes to the planning board for their review. I do like council agreement negotiations, that's good. The phase 6, I would tend to agree that when we get to that public hearing, I don't think we should make a decision that night. I think we ought to separate those. And have it, I don't know whether we would have to call
Probably do that anyway, right?
special, well, whether we would call a special meeting for a vote or,
I'll just delay it 2 weeks.
yeah, or whatever. Yeah, I agree, because I think, not that there would be an issue, I just think it gives everybody time, or,
Gives y'all time to think.
yeah, us
Consider
time
the
to think,
feedback
or,
you got.
yeah.
I get, you know, if the subcommittee is gonna be talking to the council members about a particular project, I mean, why not just have the town council? I mean, like, if we're gonna be sending it all to the town council, so they're aware, they're gonna be providing feedback, and then they're gonna be telling the subcommittee, and the subcommittee's gonna be talking, you know, just have, what's the downside of doing like the town council, replacing the subcommittee with just the town council?
Because then everybody's going to every development negotiation. Everybody.
Not that
Where-
they're gonna be as complicated as Atria, but that's a lot of meetings.
Yeah,
Will be.
Yeah, I like it.
yeah, so I think the subcommittee should still stay intact, and information should be forwarded to them.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is application submission, staff negotiation. We get to a point where we're gonna send it to the subcommittee, we send it to all the council members at that point
I would say before,
before.
so that the council has a chance to look at it prior to it going to the subcommittee, prior to the subcommittee.
That's an awareness thing, it's not feedback.
It's an awareness, not a feedback to the
Right.
staff, but a feedback to council. So that, you know, John can text me or email me and say,
So they can,
ask a question
so all
about,
concerns will be channeled through the subcommittee.
through the subcommittee. Yep.
And typical process.
And then everything else rolls along, yep.
The right thing.
Yeah.
That-
Are you good with that? Linda, are you good with that?
And then in phase 3, is the subcommittee will invite a neighbor,
Yep.
a community member that's affected by the project.
Who decides that?
The subcommittee.
Subcommittee will
Reach out,
select a person.
right. And we'll,
And the planning board. The planning board members, then that could be your,
That could be open to planning board, yeah.
yeah, well, that way, when it goes to the planning board, if they have any detailed questions. I know Lynn will be making a presentation, Debbie, you'll be there.
Right.
But still, to have one of their people in the process.
Right.
They
right,
feel more involved.
right.
Subcommittees still have to follow the same legal requirements in terms of open meetings. law.
Right.
So
that's why
if you're having a subcommittee meeting, that's where you would decide, okay, who you want to, like, you can't have emails and say, I want to appoint objects. Like, you have to have a meeting for that decision to be made, because that's a decision that you're voting on, right?
Well, we could make that decision at the actual meeting, but it could be a
First
general.
meeting?
Yeah, it could be a
The first
general
meeting.
invite to, or prior to the meeting, it could be a general invite to interested community
Homeowners.
members. Community homeowners, community members, and then of those who show up, we could work with those and designate an appointee to be able to speak and say, okay,
This is
Yeah,
the
as long as
first
it's done
subcommittee.
at the
at the
those
subcommittee.
meetings.
At the first subcommittee meeting.
Yeah. Is that something we want to add to the ordinance specifically, or just like a practice type thing?
Let's just do it as a practice. I
So-
mean, we might find that it doesn't work, that people just can't commit to, especially with it being at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
It might be something that they just can't commit to do.
And that's where social media, and emails and stuff can be very
Here's
useful.
All right.
So,
And then we are gonna do the 5 PM meeting on the fourth Monday. For all DAs.
okay, so we're gonna keep it the same. We're gonna let the council know as soon as we get an application, shoot the application, as soon as we get it to
Right.
council. And then the council has the prerogative to invite community members that they
Right.
see fit. Okay. We're gonna, want to keep the subcommittee, automatically schedule the full town council meetings at 5, or the full subcommittee meetings, excuse me, 5 o'clock before regular meetings.
Right.
Are you good with that? Okay.
Now, Alex, that's 2 meetings per month, will that be enough? Because I know there's been weeks where I've attended 2 subcommittee meetings or 2 different projects.
So, what I had suggested, I think going back here, was to do it for 50 acres or more.
Okay.
We're still gonna have a bottleneck. It's still gonna be a huge, I would ask y'all's help in helping us solve this problem, right? Because it's just,
Should it be every Monday at 5 as needed?
Every meeting Monday.
Well, that's just 2 meetings a month. So could you see?
As needed, all right, every Monday as needed.
Could you see us needing more than every Monday?
Twice a month.
Or twice a month?
oh yeah, definitely.
So what about every Monday as needed?
That would work. I mean, my concern,
It's just as needed.
well, and also staff availability. We've got 1 planner. It's just me. I mean, and we're already pretty swamped right now. I know Indian Trail has additional meetings, but they've got more staff than we do. So like, if we continue down the road and, having all these DA meetings for all these projects, I don't, we may need to add staff, right? So that was kind of one of the, the participation notice, that's an important component of it, but also, when we talk about the extensive amount of just time and resources that we commit to it, it's probably the bulk of my time right now, is just kind of doing DAs. So I mean,
Well, that's my point. Why don't we do them on our timetable rather than their timetable? There's state laws, but, state law, says I can't make 2 weeks or meet, once a month or twice a month. Why don't we do them on our timetable based on what our staff is? The last thing I want to do is have to hire another planner because they're doing all these development agreements, but let's do it on our timetable. So if we want to meet once a month, we meet once a month, and you wait your turn. You think DOT cares about, stuff, they push stuff out all the time, these developers have time, I mean, I just don't think we do what's best for us on that.
That's almost what I was thinking. I was thinking first in, first out. We work through that process and we, if you have to do it twice a month, I agree.
just so
I don't see
everybody,
us meeting every week or
Just up to twice a month.
because I mean, if we're continuing to do development agreements like by right, we do it like twice a month, it could be, a year before we get to it in some cases. So as long as like that expectation is mutual and everybody's comfortable with that.
and if we see a project that we really want, fast track it. That's what I would do.
Can we do that, Melody? I would think that would be funny.
The thing
But
that kind of jumps in there is Atrium. It was slow, then fast, and slow, and now they're doing really fast between now and mid-August. And we don't want to stall it any longer. We want to, the subcommittee wants to move this thing, get the planning board accept, so we can get it, so they can start moving dirt. So I don't want to,
Well, that's an existing project.
but what if another one of those forests was through this?
Well,
It's like, how do we
Well, then
make sure we don't push this to some requirement that we can't fast track?
But I
said we
I
just
like fast track, I don't know how.
But
I think you still can schedule a subcommittee.
Over and above the routine.
As long as we don't make it a part of our text, and we just make it a practice, and if we want to make it a text.
Yeah, I wouldn't make it like the date and time that part of the text message. I would just, this is kind of more process, hey, mutual understanding, we set this at like 5 o'clock.
But I think we're gonna get better at them. I think we're gonna get better at them, and they're going to be quicker. The process will be quicker. And I think that, honestly, with the council having that heads up in the beginning, I think that'll help too, because then all the concerns are being addressed there, so when you get to the vote, there isn't, I mean, a council member may say, I just want you to know I'm still opposed to this, or whatever. I mean, that's certainly their right to do that. But there shouldn't have to be any big lengthy discussion. It should be a matter of, let's take the public hearing, and then, if we delay the vote, or maybe we don't delay the vote, maybe we should leave the vote on that night, since we're all getting a heads up.
I get one of the issues we kind of come back into, the reason I said it 50 acres is, we just beef up ordinance otherwise, because you get into the by right discussion, what's your by right use, because if we're doing them for like smaller tracts, you get your 50 acres, that covers the big stuff like the tree and things like that. But you go back to kind of leveraging like, what can we, Melanie, what can we turn down things for, right? That's part of the discussion. What can we say no for? And so if it's like, it's not like a conditional zoning, right? There's still an ordinance that's got to be applied. So that's what I'm kind of struggling with. I feel like if we kind of decrease that, we're going to run into the same issues that are happening now.
If you decrease, what, the 50 acres?
Right now, we do
smaller
it
project?
for like everything within mixed use, and I think certain, residential, I guess I've all wanted that they're going to, so practically all subdivisions to require a development agreement. But I guess the tough situation gets into, all right, you got a project that meets all the ordinance requirements.
You can't build for new development.
Right.
And you what?
But you can't move forward because you need a development agreement.
Okay, but wouldn't those development agreements be a quick process? If they've met all the requirements, that's a no-brainer. It's just you're putting it there so they have to abide by it. If they're abiding by all the ordinances, there shouldn't be any
There
discussion.
should be, but if you're only going to hear one per Monday night, twice a month, you're only hearing two, and if it's at the back of the line, you know it's simple.
Well, maybe the 2 hours should be divided, or like you hear the more difficult ones at the beginning, and maybe, leave 45 minutes for the ones that are quick, and maybe knock a couple of those out.
I guess my concern more is the scheduling, because I'm like totally on board, like, let's just set a pace, and that's the pace of the work, and nobody's gonna, force us to make a decision that you guys don't feel is in the best interest. Right?
Well, so we do them for all developments. No, there's no acreage requirement right now.
Right, essentially, yeah.
So
So the question now is like, if we don't like something, it's still a by right use. So I guess the whole thing with moving the standalone multifamily to conditional is to give y'all the leverage to say no. But now the issue is, if you don't like something, then cancel it, right? Maybe
So,
don't require it.
basically what I'm hearing is we just need to do the DAs from your perspective, that we need to do the DAs with 50 or more acres.
What are the benefits that y'all see from doing DAs for 25 to 50 acres? What do we get from that?
I guess my question is, how many parcels do you left with that one on paper?
For 25? Well, we don't have that many with 50 plus, right? Like 25 plus, there are probably a few. Right?
Well,
So-
sometimes people assemble parcels so that you do end up with more than 25 acres.
Yeah.
Well, while we're thinking about this, I wanted to put in something here about the the TIA. Because our process says that you don't actually do the TIA until the application is made. Some of those TIAs require time because the consultant may not be able to get to it. So can we not buy ourselves some time by following the current process of, getting the data that we need to review? And I guess even for some of the less than 50-acre parcels, some of them might require a TIA. And we need that information, and I think the subcommittee would be evaluating whether or not to, require everything that's recommended from the TIA, or I can see some discussion around that whole report. So there may be something to negotiate, even though it's in use by right.
Right. Well, the TIA is an ordinance, though. We just, the TIA is an application of that section of the ordinance, right? So, if we don't like something, then we should change the ordinance. That'd be my thought process. So if the TIA says this is when it applies, I've got some concerns, I'll put it on here about, we just need to make sure we clarify that town controls the timing of the improvements. So, a thing that I saw in there that I think we need to change. But if we're applying what the ordinance says, then the ordinance says what the ordinance says. If we disagree with the ordinance says, we need to change the ordinance.
So something like TIA must be completed before this goes to subcommittee.
Yeah, and as a practical matter, that's probably something, and we've started enforcing. There's a development over, actually your neck of the woods, that's the approach we've been taking. If you don't have your TIA completed before it goes to subcommittee, the subcommittee just won't schedule it. So that's the approach that we have to take.
And that'll happen right now because they're not going to do a TIA in the school.
Right.
So that's going to delay people forward.
So that's something we can just put on the
Yeah,
checklist.
that's okay.
Absolutely.
I think we can put that on the checklist, right? I don't know, some checklist on the application. Just change that out and just say, all right, you gotta have your TIA.
Well, if we need to change the ordinance, do that. That would be something that you guys need to figure out if we do need to change that in order to have the report back by the time the subcommittee meets the first time.
Well, I guess my concern is a lot of the frustration I heard with Chestnut, several of these processes, we've got these community meetings and public hearings and things like that, and you get to a point where you get all this feedback, and at the end of the day, you can't do anything about it because the ordinance is what the ordinance is, right? So the DA process and the ordinance is part of our approval process, but they're separate, right? So if we don't like something in the ordinance, whether it's a density or a use or buffer or something like that, Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see how we can kind of change that through the development process. And so then the question becomes, why are we doing the development process if we've got something that we can't kind of change anything on?
Now, the developer can agree to
They can do voluntary contributions, right?
or say, okay, instead of, leave the buffer wider,
Yeah.
they can do that, but they can't.
That got back to the point I made way early on about conditional zoning versus a development agreement. We got no leverage with the development agreement. They can basically, in the ordinance, the UDO, they can do it. And what is the purpose of the development agreement except try and get more out of it?
And then extending the process so we can negotiate.
Yeah, I think there is some benefit, for the atrium site, for example. There's some real issues that we just need to have a conversation with them through. And a lot of times, if somebody's developing a tract that's large, they're willing to work with you a little bit, right? So there is value in the DA in that you can get some voluntary contributions. You can have those kind of face-to-face conversations and say, hey, I like this, I don't like this, but you're still kind of operating with the parameters of the DA. The conditional zoning, putting that multi-use within that allows the town much more leverage in leeway to say yes or no. So the question then becomes, like, if you've got a tract that's a few acres, what is the purpose of the DA? It's a tremendous resource commitment across the board, and do we want to put our resources into those projects, or do we want to put our resources into these kind of bigger projects, atrium projects? The Idlewild project, that one was like 70-some acres, that would apply. The Solis project, that was done again, it's just standalone, wouldn't need, so that would be, go through the conditional zoning process. Just kind of looking back, like, all of the big ones that we've kind of gone through, would either go through like conditional zoning, or they would go through the DA process. So, I mean, it's not like any of these, for lack of a better term, marquee, big or controversial projects would slip through the cracks, if you will. Y'all would still have the opportunity to kind of weigh in on. I just want us to be upfront about like why are we doing this DA process? Does it make sense? And that everybody's on the same page, so we don't get into these situations like we are now, where we're just kind of frustrated and we're banging our heads against the wall, and it just causes unnecessary conflict. When really, what that energy could be put more productively is kind of working on making ordinance changes to address those issues. And that's not to say there's no value in it, but what's the greater value between those two choices? Because if we continue to have, meetings where it's great we invite the public, we should do more of that, but if their input can't change anything, then why are we doing it, right?
That goes back to Linda's point, David, what you just said. We don't have any leverage at the DA. So why not make everything conditional zoning? And then the big projects, we have a DA. And then you're in there negotiating back and forth, but you have that leverage to say, you're going to do this, or it's not going to get passed. You're right, I agree with you. Why are we doing these DAs if we don't have any leverage?
The point I made earlier is that we don't have to require a DA for all these projects, but we have the option of doing a DA if we choose to. So if we remove the requirement for DAs on everything, when the council first hears that intro to the project in that first meeting that we talked about earlier, if we think this is one that we'd like to do a developer agreement on, I guess we could suggest at that point that we'd like to do that and see if the developer would agree to that. But making it required is what's taking so much time, I believe, for everybody.
Wouldn't making the parcels, the bigger parcels, whether they put them together and it was that many acres, wouldn't that take care of the requirement if we come up with this suggestion that anything that's 50 acres or more is required to have a DA? And then the other one was the MU1, MU2, and the TC. If they're standalone, the multifamily, they are required to have a DA. So I mean, that kind of takes care of it. And the ones that are under that 50 acres, then staff takes care of, essentially, because those people are going to have to abide by what the ordinance says.
I think we said if we were making those standalones conditional zoning, we
Right.
wouldn't have to have a DA.
That's right, that's right. But the other ones would. But if you make it 50 or more acres, then that takes care of probably a lot of them. So you wouldn't have to have a DA for every, right, Alex? Is that correct?
So, I'm sorry, say that again.
Okay.
Having a sidebar.
If we make it 50, it's okay, we understand. If we made it 50 acres or more is required to have a DA, then those that would be under that threshold, staff, which would be a lot quicker process, staff would take care of those. And those would work through the process. You wouldn't have to have the subcommittee meetings and all that. You guys just work through those processes, the procedures, and it comes before a planning board, it comes before council, and they're approved or not approved, whatever the decision is. But if they're 50 acres or more, they require a DA.
I think the concern, at least from what I'm understanding here, we've got all this in U1 and U2 and TC districts. So if we allow everything to go in there by right, we could wind up with a bunch of chicken Annie's and Popeyes and everything else right now, because it's coming in by right. So how do we ensure, we spent all this time and money putting these small area plans together. We built a vision from the town to do that. So how do we develop a tool, if it's DA or otherwise, that builds that vision out for not only this council, but the next council, the council beyond?
I think the first thing is just to really commit to a vision, honestly, as trendy as that sounds, because, a lot of the issues I'm seeing, it looks like it's a density argument too. I guess from staff's perspective, like, the small area plans, is that something the council is still kind of committed to? As far as, so, the small area plans are still there, and it still shows the uses and kind of where they want to be. So, you've got your densities, if some sort of allowed use came in there, it'd have to meet all the standards of the ordinance to accomplish what the smaller plans are there. So, I guess the question is, at some point, I guess we got to have a cutoff, right? Like, it's like, all right, everything below this, we're going to get involved with. Everything above this, we're going to get involved. Is that fair to say?
Well, isn't that what the 50 acres would do?
Yeah, and, well, that was the thought process, right? I mean, it wasn't meant to be the end-all, be-all that says, hey, this is the only way to do this, but as part of the packages of the suggestions, so that, going back to the original concerns here, so like, the inability to deny a multifamily project without a commercial component. So, the way to address that is kind of the things that the council's collaboratively decided on. The second thing is the public notification and participation requirements. So for conditional zonings, rezonings, the 500-foot notification, and with those things, try to put that out on social media. And then the third thing, 3 or 4, is the extensive amount of time needed to process a DA and whether it makes sense to require for a smaller project, right? So, you've got a kind of like a land use plan. Are you comfortable with that plan? And if you're not, then let's talk about let's change the ordinance to adjust that plan. Because the real, how we fix this is via the ordinance, it's not via the development process. And if we keep on trying to solve this through the development process, I think we're going to be running into the same issues that we continue to be running into.
But that's what I'm saying. If we make it so that it is 50 or more acres that requires a DA, should that not move the process along quicker for those that are smaller tracts?
I don't know if it, likely, yes.
So by doing that, if we increase it to 50 or more, they have to have a DA. Do we have to change the ordinance to reflect that? Okay, so that would be my suggestion, is change the ordinance, and because they're going to have to abide by our ordinances anyway. It's not as if we're going to get, well, I don't even know what we potentially could get, but we have a small area plan, and my understanding was that small area plan is a legal and binding document as well. Is it not? It is a guide that is attached to our land use plan.
With your land use plan.
Right, but isn't that, and that is a rendering, which means that, you know, where there's apartments, they could put commercial, I mean, there are
Right, so we
some,
look to that to see, is this project in conformance with your land use plan,
Right.
your small area plan?
right. Which, we took care of that in number 1, because if they do a standalone, then we do a DA, if they don't, then they have to follow the ordinances. So I guess I'm concerned with, it seems like we're just kind of talking, I'm sorry, it's a teacher in me, talking in circles. If it's a matter of fixing the ordinance, then what verbiage do we need to have to fix that? Is 50 the threshold that would take care of that, or do we want to lower it to 35? I mean, what's going to help us to not be in meetings 2 and 3 times?
It's gonna help us get the right mix of what we want.
Yeah, even if we raise this to 50 and we have, you know, just a couple of days, we're still throwing a chance to the wind a little bit with what kind of development comes up. And we don't have any ability to say no to PDA currently. I think that,
But they still have to abide by the ordinances, and they still have to comply with the land use plan, and that small area plan is a part of that land use plan.
Well, I never understood the small area plans to have the weight, legal weight. I was understanding that was kind of a concept plan, kind of like the developer brings us a site plan that is just conceptual at that point in time. And frankly, I had probably supported some small area plans that I would not support had I understood completely what was entailed with that. So, I mean, I know some of you are still very much committed to that, but I said earlier I thought we needed to take another look at the whole density question, because to me I think that is an issue, and I think some of us did not fully understand when we were adopting those things exactly what that meant on the ground. And I'd really like to go back. I'm not committed to continue with the small area plans as they are currently presented.
Wait, I think we are going around.
I think we should adjourn a vote on taking this and put it up later,
All right.
so we can get some sleep on it, chew on it, fresh eyes, and think about it. Let Alex and Melanie do first.
I'm fine with that.
Well, we did 2 out of 4.
Well, the last one is the schools, and, you know, that's on them. How do we, school impact information, how can be used in making zoning decisions? You know, we just, you know, ask the schools to send us timely data whenever it's available,
And they do.
and they do, and we use it as we review. So that's,
And they're like NCDOT, they're reactive. They're not, they don't respond, they react. And you won't get another school built until they have 15 to 20 trailers, and that's been proven over and over and over again.
and we have no ability to raise funds or change the funding mechanism at all with any decisions we make. So I'm all for good info coming in, but I do have concerns over whether the council should be looking at that as a primary decision point. You know, maybe if we were in a different state with different rules, you know, where we could have impact fees and stuff like that, it would be, but we're toothless when it comes to that, and sewer and water.
right, it's just one factor.
Can I add just one thing? I went down one case that talked about a school impact study, and that was in Pineville from 2007. And it seems like it was by all accounts a by right subdivision. The town council turned it down, saying, no, it's our policy that Pineville kids should go to neighborhood schools. And the court said that because the subdivision ordinance did not expressly require a school impact study, the town council is without authority to deny a permit on grounds not expressly stated in the ordinance. So if you even want to consider that, it needs to be in your ordinance. Now, the next question is, okay, if it's in your ordinance, can you then, use that as reason to deny their notice?
What kind of teeth did they think they had, the town have to make their kids go to local or neighborhood schools in Charmac?
This was just a general policy of the town of Pineville to have its children attend neighborhood elementary schools.
It sounds nice.
It was a policy, policy is not described in the general requirements ordinance or outlined in the future land use plan. I mean, that was the reason they used to turn down the subdivision. Of course, you can't do that. You can't turn down for a reason that's not specifically stated.
Alrighty. Moving on, number 6, the settlement agreement and release in 19 CBS.
Item. Can we just, do you mind if I repeat back just my understanding, because I want to make sure I'm doing what you guys want.
Okay.
So like on the first, the inability to deny multifamily project without, don't do anything now, but generally, I'm going to type this up and kind of send it to everybody so everybody's on the same page here. We're good with requiring standalone multifamily to do the conditional zoning process, right? Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Baxter, you, Mr. Martin, is all okay with that? Everyone? It's okay. So requiring standalone multifamily to go through the conditional zoning, is everybody okay with that? And then make 25% based on square footage, commercial, make that kind of a by right thing. Everybody good with those 2 points? Everybody comfortable with those 2 points? Okay. And then secondly, with public notification and participation requirements, putting out 500 feet to all from the affected property within the county limits. And I think we had talked about the most effective way to reach people would be mailing it directly to their house. Everybody in agreement with that? And then
First class.
First class, right. Okay. And then also to put it out on social media as a practice, recognizing the reality that we're talking about public notifications. Nobody's going to be reading legal requirements, right? It's kind of putting it out on the social media, hey, if we've got a conditional zoning or a rezoning, so that we try to reach people in a modern way. Is everybody comfortable with that? Everybody agree with that? And then we had a discussion on kind of number 3, the extensive amount of time needed to process the DA. Didn't sound like any real consensus was reached
No,
there.
put that on.
We'll come back, and then the school impact stuff, we don't feel like that's something we can bring on right now. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's just one factor.
So do you want, for our August meeting, you want to put this back on the agenda? And we'll hold off, I'll type something up and we'll hold off on kind of taking any action until we get kind of consensus on the last item. Okay.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, number 6, Melanie?
I've got a couple copies, the settlement agreement and release in the Phoenix Land Surveying case. We filed a lawsuit, he's agreed, Mark Carter and his company to pay us $5,000. Once this is approved by you all and we receive the check, we can then take a dismissal in the County Superior Court.
That's what you recommend?
I do.
All right. Any questions for Melanie?
I wasn't here until that's the.
And just so the record, we're receiving a $5,000 payment in lieu of, what was our cost to redo the engineering? 20,
Was it under 25?
yeah,
I thought it was 20.
22, so
22 or something.
It was under 25.
So the town's taking about a $17K net loss from our contractor's potential mistake.
Yep.
Can we take formal action to ensure that we do not hire this firm again?
You can. I think originally they wanted this to be confidential, and I said it's a public funds, it's public record, you can't do that. Make sure there's nothing about. I mean, I think Chris will remember what companies we should use and should not use.
And if you ever leave, we'll post that company name on the board when he, for the,
Yeah, tell my successor.
yeah, for your.
In 20 or 30 years.
You don't say that in here, that makes it confidential.
Oh, I took it out.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for Melanie? Can I get a motion, please?
And I make a motion to approve settlement agreement and release in 19 CBS 445 Stallings versus Phoenix Lanes President.
All right. I second. Motion by Ms. Steele, second by Ms. Romanoff. Any other further discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, Melanie. All right, and Melanie, could you be on number 7 for us, please?
Next, we need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3 to consult with the attorney, to preserve the attorney-client privilege. I'd also ask for a motion to invite Sergeant Brown in for the first part of the closed session, and the other two cases that will be discussed in the closed session are Town of Stallings versus Glucose, 18 CVS 769, and Courtyards at Weddington Road et al. Versus Town of Stallings, 19 CVS 1841.
Motion by Ms. Steele, second by Ms. Romanoff, to go into closed session. All in favor? And that's unanimous. All right. Thank y'all for coming tonight. Sergeant Brown, y'all dressed up?
I didn't recognize you outside of your bunny suit.
Yeah, my buddy suit. I started to wear it, but
I would have known who you were. As a woman, I'm like, what's that guy right there, all dressed up?